Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Well, welcoming you to tonight's En Casa con la Plaza. En Casa con la Plaza, as you know, we've been doing it now since April of 2020, bringing our programming during the pandemic. And now, after the lockdown, where we're trying to resume our normality, from our home to yours. We're doing it 3 times a week, sometimes more. This week we'll have 4 sessions, but bringing you the best of our culture, history, art, and issues. We'd like to thank you for joining us. If you're on Zoom, you're welcome to let us know where you're viewing from. You could ask questions using the Q&A. You could make comments, shout outs using the chat feature. We'll be taking questions throughout, maybe saving them for later. Those of you who have joined us on Facebook, please use the comment section. Let us know where you're viewing from as well. Let us know if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please do so. This is a heavy topic we'll be on tonight, and so we'll all be learning something. But before we do that, just to give you some updates on La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. We have reopened now for about a month, a little bit over a month now, on a very limited schedule. But now that we've reopened, starting next Monday, we're going to go to our full schedule, Wednesday through Monday, with Tuesdays closed from 12 to 5. You don't need to make reservations. We won't have time limits. You will need to, we are asking people to please wear masks when they come in, but it's now going to be almost business as usual at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes to enjoy our exhibitions, including the reopening of Calle Principal, which is our reenactment of Main Street, which is a favorite for children, for families. It'll be a little less touchy-feely because of wanting to keep things safe for everybody, but very enjoyable nonetheless. We have, if you can't, or you don't, or you won't want to come into the museum, you could view our newest exhibition, Only Light Can Do That, a neon mural created by Patrick Martinez. It's 33, 34 neon signs on our windows facing Main Street. So you could drive by morning, noon, and night and really get some impactful social messages coming your way for insight, for thoughtfulness. So that's something else. Also, we start our public programming this next Sunday, Molcajete Dominguero, our Latinx pop-up, vendor pop-up, takes place between 11 and 4 there at our historic Paseo Walkway. And then finally in July, we start our public programming on our outdoor campus, beginning with Carlos Almaraz, Playing with Fire, a documentary on Carlos Almaraz, a great Chicano artist, one of the icons of Chicano art, who we presently have an exhibition on our 2nd floor, Carlos Almaraz, Evolution of Form. So that's the commercials for tonight. Again, we're looking forward to you visiting us at La Plaza, but also we're going to continue En Casa con La Plaza for those who want something to expand their knowledge in different ways. So tonight it's gonna be a real thoughtful program. It's called, tonight's session is called Crisis and Hope at the Border. So due to the zero tolerance policy implemented by the Trump administration, approximately 5,500 migrant children were separated from their families, and about 1,000 more or less remain separated. Currently, more than 21,000 unaccompanied minors are being detained. Families are gathered at the border facing long and uncertain waits. So this is going to be discussion on the current crisis of the border and about efforts being taken by organizations and individuals taking activist and legal stances to bring hope and relief to immigrant children and adults. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists for today. I'm going to go on the gallery view here, and please pop up Priscilla Luna. Priscilla is a LA native born in Southgate, and I met Priscilla about a couple years ago when she brought her family over to La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Daughter of an immigrant parents with a BA from Cal State Northridge with a major in Child and Adolescent Development. She worked as a behavior interventionist with children in the school system, currently a full-time mother to 3 children. Her passion as an advocate for children has also fueled her activism for human rights, be they immigrant, civil rights, AAPI, BLM, police brutality, and LGBTQ. Please welcome Priscilla. Hi, Priscilla. How you doing this evening?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having us today. We really appreciate this opportunity.
All right, well, thank you. And if you could hold on, we're gonna introduce our next panelist, Sophia Gillespie, the daughter of Guatemalan immigrant and an American father. Her passion for advocacy started young. She attended law school to give others the same opportunities she had been given being born here. She specializes in humanitarian applications such as U visas. Welcome, Sophia. And how are you doing this evening, Sophia?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for joining us today. And then finally, we have Gabby Mayorga, an artist, teacher, director, and activist. She graduated from the theater school at DePaul University in Chicago and acted on stages, Goodman Theater, Steppenwolf Garage. Recently, she has taught theater project workshops for young kids across the country and started creating small art projects. But she's always been very active in immigrant rights, seeing herself reflected in the challenges the community faces. A few years back, she started volunteering as a translator for immigrant families together and saw how she could use her skills to help more directly. She's currently a case manager at the organization, which is called, and you could tell us what it's called. I'm sorry, I don't have it here. Every Last One. In the past 3 months, they have coordinated the release of more than 100 children to the loving arms of their families. So please welcome Gabby Mayorga.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. And before we get started, we have a couple people here. Cassandra Moreno says, great to see you and thank you for doing this. From Cassandra Moreno, my daughter-in-law will be here with you speaking and we are looking so forward to it. So who's the daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law here? All right. All right, and on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us again. Tell us where you're viewing from, ask questions, make comments, we really appreciate them. Okay, to get started, let's see now, I'm going to go back here. I'd like to ask each of you what your point of view is. You know, there's a lot to this topic to unpack. But basically, we're at a point now where what happened in the past administration and what's happening now has led to some important and drastic ramifications for families and individuals who have tried to come over to the United States. So if you could just tell us about your point of view of these policies. You don't have to go into great detail, but what's your sense? We could start with Priscilla, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. You know, just a little bit about me. I am a mother of 3, and so I personally don't have a lot of knowledge necessarily or know how immigration law works specifically, but I do know that as a mother and the idea of children being alone in a detention center, right now we have 20,000 children that are in various detention centers across the nation. I know just that doesn't sit well with me. You know, the idea of children being separated from their parents. I do have background in child and adolescent development. And so where I sort of go is what's the experience like, even for a few days, for a child to, one, go through a journey. They already are coming from crime, from whatever, you know, their personal story is. Then they come here and they're asking, I believe 80% of the children that are in detention centers, they have family here. So they either have a parent or a tia or an abuela. So to me, the reunification needs to happen quicker. From what I'm reading and studying is there's about a 33-day average. So there are children who are being detained at a longer periods of time. An average is 33 days of being detained in a facility where I want to know what's going on in these facilities, what's the health of the children. From reports that I have read, There has been some reports of sexual abuse. There has been centers that have closed down because of that. I believe a few years ago, there were some deaths and children who have died under the custody from negligence, from simple things, from a flu. And there's, children who are suffering from suicidal thoughts. I mean, they don't know what's going to happen to them. They're going through trauma. So as a mother, I view this as, how can I help? What can I say? What can we do? I don't have a degree, and I might not have those in understanding immigration, and that itself is so complicated. So I'm coming from a perspective of, we need this information to be out. We need to talk to the right people. We need to, pressure our politicians, put pressure on the Biden administration, on Kamala, on, this is not a Republican Democrat thing. In my view, this is a humanitarian thing. This is about the children, and the trauma that they're suffering. So whatever party you're at, this is about thinking about the kids, and we have to find a better solution, because 33 days in detention center in these facilities where there have been COVID outbreaks, there's been lice outbreaks. In my bio, or if anybody's interested, you can reach out to me. There's a link. BBC News did a report recently. So last month they did a 20-minute documentary where they are interviewing children who were just released from these detention centers. They're interviewing employees who are speaking out and saying, these are prisons. These are, this is not a humanitarian cause here. Yes, some facilities might have better policy, or, might take care of children a little bit better, but it doesn't represent all of the centers across the nation. There is trauma happening. So I'm coming from a perspective of, on Instagram, I just share reports. If I read something, I just share it, and trying to connect with the right people, and even understanding. And, Sophia, I send her stuff like, can you explain this to me? I don't know what this quite means. And, it takes a lot to really try and understand, and it can be overwhelming. But I feel like if you're a parent, if you're just someone who's concerned about these children, put pressure on the right people. There's petitions to sign. There's just inform yourself. And that's sort of where I'm coming from. So.
All right, well, thank you very much. And that, I think from a personal perspective, that's where it starts for a lot of people, is seeing what's going on from their personal observation, from what they read, from what they hear about. And so taking action the way that you have is just so admirable. I'm gonna, I put down in our chat here, your Instagram. I mean, I've learned so much from it myself, putting it here on our Facebook as well. So please keep up with Priscilla's Instagram. Okay, Sophia, please tell us about your work as an immigration attorney, and what you have seen in the past administration, what's going on now, and what's been your role in working on this situation?
Yeah, so I mean, I entered law school at a unique time. Like, I started law school during the Trump administration, so I actually got to see, working in the field, the progression. And so I actually feel like I can speak on, I saw the implementation of his policies, and then I saw the consequences of the policies. And then I also have dealt with the long-term consequences of his policies, because I think it's important to note that it's not always immediate. A lot of the times with immigration, it may change overnight, but you may not see the totality of the effects for years to come. And we're seeing a lot of that with just the zero tolerance policy. For instance, Sessions, the Attorney General at the time under Trump, made it so that it was policy to separate children from their families, which was not policy prior. And now the only way that those parents can really have any type of legal status in the US with their kids is if Congress creates an entire pathway to citizenship for them, because these parents are getting what's called parole into the US for roughly like 36 months, I believe. And at the end of that term, like, that's it. They don't have any other type of status in the United States. And the only way that they can get it is if Congress steps in, which then we now need Congress to agree to it. And it's hard for them to agree on what day of the week it is, let alone pass something, you know? So the consequences, I think we're going to feel it for years. And another thing that I think is really important to note as well is that, you know, you hear all these numbers. We have 19,000 kids, we have the 5,000 kids, we have 22,000 kids. I think it's easy when you look at those numbers. Okay, that's a number, that's bad, but those are 22,000 cases. Those are 22,000 individual children. And in my line of work, I encounter the human cost. You know, I see one of the 22,000 kids. I talk to one of the, you know, however many parents of those 22,000 kids there are. And when you see it on an individual level and you break it down from a more human perspective, I think it becomes even harder to not want to involve yourself. You know what I mean? Because it's no longer just, we have 22,000 kids we need to take care of. It's, no, I know some of those kids and I know what they went through to come to the States. I know why they're here and their stories are valid.
And so I'm imagining what you are hearing these stories. So are you taking these cases on a one-to-one? Are you working through an organization? How do they come to you for assistance?
So I'm not affiliated with any organization really. I mean, I do work with every last one. Actually, a lot of people contact me through social media. They contact me through Instagram because, like I said, I do specialize more in humanitarian visa, specifically the U visa. So that's the bulk of what I do. And people come to me on a one-by-one basis, sort of, because I'm very passionate about making, the law affects all of us, you know? And it was very expensive for me to go to law school. It was very hard to complete law school. It was very difficult to pass the bar. And I don't think that you should have to be a lawyer to understand the law or to have access to the resources that will tell you how the law affects you, because it affects all of us. So I'm very passionate about making my social media accessible to everyone so people know that they can ask me questions. You know, I get people that will be like, how much is it to talk to you for 20 minutes? It's free. You know, I'm more than happy to answer questions for you, you know, because not everyone has access to an attorney. And I think especially with these cases, we know that your chances of getting whether it be an application with the Office of Immigration, or especially if you're in proceedings in immigration court, the chances of getting, you know, it granted is much, much higher if you have legal representation or access to legal counsel, and very few people do. So I've been lucky enough that with every last one, who's the organization that Gabby works with, that I've encountered several asylum cases. I have some children that were sent here by themselves, and then subsequently their parents now are going to try to file, and I'm trying to help them out with that as well.
All right, well, thank you. If you don't mind sharing your Instagram, if you could go ahead and put it in the on the chat on Zoom, and then I'll go ahead and I'll put it on Facebook. So Gabby, if you could just tell us a little bit about your organization, every last one, your role in it, and what you've seen regarding the past administration, what's going on now.
Yeah, I'm with every last one. And what we do is we help the families. They reach out to us, are like, I need help sponsoring my child, my nephew, my minor. And so we just pretty much take them on from the beginning of the process up until the child gets released with anything they might need. Sometimes the families just don't even know how to start. So how to start the process. They'll call us and they'll be like, I haven't heard from my child in a week and 2 weeks. And sometimes we're like, oh, first step, call the hotline. Here's the number. This is what you ask. We first find out if they're in a shelter sometimes. And so it's a very stressful experience for the families to go through this process. And our organization helps everything from helping with the application, which can be very challenging for some families. And they'll be like, wait, I have to print it, you know, fill it out and then scan it. And for some families, they don't even know what scan is. They don't even know where to go to print it. And something that our organization can do for free with volunteers is just like, hey, we'll help you fill out the application. You don't have to go print it out. We'll help you prepare it, submit it. And we're there every step of the way. When something comes up and you don't even know how to go about it, like we're there to help you out. Each case manager is assigned a family, and every family needs something different. And every case is a little different. Sometimes we'll get a case where these really stress me out. Sometimes where a family will have a child that has been transferred 3 times, and they're calling us because they don't know what's happening, and the child has been there for so long, and the case managers has just stopped talking to them, and they have to submit everything again, and it can be very confusing. So that's how we help out. Yeah, I actually started getting involved more because I'm an artist, and I've always, as an immigrant myself, I came as a child, and just like talking about how loss affect us all. My family got documented because of the amnesty in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Like that law changed the trajectory of I'm the youngest of 7 siblings, and we all managed to have an education and have a career because of a simple thing as a document, you know, like having papers. And as an artist, I've always felt very strongly about that. I have always felt very passionate about immigrant rights and how laws can affect us so, like Sophia was saying, in the long run, in the years, what can happen. Like one of my sisters, an engineer for NASA, like it's just, we really like, it can really do something for a child. And I started becoming involved with immigrant families together. And that's where I met Casey, because I was like, I need to like be more doing the work. So like, I know I'm fluent in Spanish and English. I've been helping out my, you know, when you're a kid with parents who don't speak English, and you grow up filling out paperwork, you get something in the mail and it's in English, and you're like, you growing up, you know both languages, and you help them through that process. So a lot of the work that I do is kind of like that. I already kind of have the skills of processing documents and connecting with a family that doesn't speak the language, or who cannot read or doesn't know how to read and write, and explaining what a paper means, and going through it and going like, and this is what this means, and this is where we put the name. And so it's been really meaningful to have this job, and I think there's still work to be done. Like now the Biden administration has a lot of, I mean, they got inherited a lot of trouble, and now, you know, there's work to be done, and it's being done, but it's taking a while.
Well, Casey, you referred to Casey being Casey Revkin, who's one of the founders of Every Last One, and currently the CFO. Could you tell us, if you know, a little bit about the genesis of the organization and how people can contact them in order to learn more about it and to get some assistance?
Oh, absolutely. I was talking to Casey the other day, and I was like, how did it come about? Like, and she's like, oh, we had a case with a 4-year-old child. A mother needed to print, it would cost her $50 to go to Kinko's and print out an application. And she's like, and she was like, well, that's something that's so easy for me, $50, what she was saying. But for the family, it was such a challenge. So she's like, oh, there are things that we could do with this organization that can help families when they might not be able to, that might be really much easier for her and the organization. And that's how it started. And like, or at least that's what she told me. And I think people can always reach us to the organization. We have a hotline. We go everylastone.org. There, we're always, you know, looking for volunteers who could help with the application process. We have volunteers that might take like 2 hours, and we have volunteers also for the hotline. So if you have like an hour in the week, we get calls from there, and it's important that if you're monitoring an hour, that you get a message and you respond to the family right away, so that they they then know that that we're responding to them and give them resources like the hotline to how to call ORR and make sure that their kid is in a shelter and how to get a case manager to request to contact them. And there's also, you can also donate at the website. And also like families, if you know somebody who needs help or a family who wants to need some help in the process, the website is really where you can reach us.
All right, thank you. I've posted on the chat and also on the comment section on Facebook, the website for Every Last One. So please take advantage and share it with others. Priscilla, how did you get in contact first, or what was your knowledge of Every Last One, and how have you used their services in the work that you've done?
Yeah, so I ran across them. I think I had known them for a little while from friends who had shared their information. They're a pretty new organization, but I was trying to make the connection, and from learning about, you know, what's happening, then when I came across their because we had the Trump and then the Biden, right, sort of shift, right? And when I saw, okay, is there going to be any change? Are we going to see something different? Are their needs going to be different, you know, with the new administration? And then and I remember the day I heard that the Long Beach Convention Center was going to open, and they were going to house up to 1,000 unaccompanied children. I was like, wait, what? Like under this administration, like what's going on? You know, like I think so many of us had this like sense of like, oh, Trump is gone and things are going to get better. And so I think that's where I kind of was like, wait a second, what's going on here? And we need to figure out exactly, not just the knowledge of knowing what's happening, but who's doing the work, who's helping these families, where can we get information? And with Every Last One, what stood out to me was they're not normalizing this situation. They're seeing it as children should not be detained, they need to be reunited, and reunited is the message, and immediately, and it shouldn't have to take 33 days. And so they have several petitions that are out on reunification, calling the Biden administration accountable to reunify these families. So we're spending a lot of money. We've opened, just for those who don't know what's happening right now, we have the San Diego Convention Center that houses about 20, that had the capacity for 2,400 children, unaccompanied children. We have Long Beach Convention Center, which was at 1,000. And then we have the Pomona Fairplex that also recently opened, and they can house up to, I think it was 24 or something, or 25. I'm not quite sure on the numbers, but so that sort of stood out to me. And I'm like, why are we having these big facilities? What's going on? And so when I was talking to Casey a little bit more, and her and I had been in touch before, but hearing about these facilities, I started learning how their organization created a way for, and this is all word of mouth, just so you know. So these families, when their child crosses over, it could be weeks and they have no idea where their child is. So they're being they start at the border, and anybody, please correct me if you guys hear anything that I don't say correctly, but they start at the border, then, which is terrible conditions. That's where you see the Mylar blankets and overcrowding and all of that. There are facilities that are licensed, and then right now they're opening facilities that are unlicensed. So what they announce is that as soon as your child come over, you will get a call within 48 hours and you will know where they're at. From what we're hearing, and from the stories that we're hearing, is some parents go weeks without knowing where their child is. So a lot of these children come with phone numbers. They're coming across with a family or something, but they're being separated. They're only allowed to come in if if they claim to be alone. So, so what happens is families they found a hotline. And from what I remember is that Casey said, this is all word of mouth, this hotline, which every last one has provided. And they say, I don't know where my child is. I haven't heard from them. Can you please help me find them? And then we find the child, they're assigned a case manager. And then from there, we teach them how to fill out the application. So essentially the government has the 30-page application. You want to find your child, and they're called sponsors. So when you hear the sponsor, it could be a tia trying to sponsor their nephew and get them out of the detention center. So in order for a child to be released out of these detentions, they need to have a sponsor. So I believe it's 45% of children who are in detention centers today have parents here in the US that are ready to pick them up. So why is it taking 33 days? Why is the process so difficult? And that's where we're saying this process, the reunification shouldn't take that long. So instead of investing all of this money on and opening all these facilities and detaining all of these children, let's put that effort, let's put that time in whatever it takes to reunite the children. If you have a parent here, you shouldn't be spending 33 days in a detention center. That process, that reunification should happen quicker. And I believe 80% of the children in detention centers here, they have a tia ready to pick them up. They have a grandmother, somebody that's family. So I understand that you have to go through a process, to make sure that that's the mom, that's the tia, and that when you're releasing these children. But we have different policies and petitions that are calling the administration to make this process a lot. It could be up to 48 hours, right? It shouldn't be 33 days. And I think the average for a parent is about 22 days. Wow. So that's where I sort of came in, and I saw that they're doing the real work in the work it takes in filling out the applications. Also, if there's a tia that lives in Minnesota and then the child is in San Diego, every last one also connects with other organizations, and they'll help fly that tia out over to San Diego and then fly them back. Because sometimes they don't have the money to go and pick up the child. Sometimes they don't have the $45 to fill out the application. They don't, so they're making it very difficult to have to release these children. And so where every last one comes in is that they're doing the actual work to make this process. They're like the middle person, like how can we help them get these applications out, get the help that they need, connect them with the right people. So they're doing amazing work. So you can volunteer if you speak Spanish, you can donate, anything helps. And everything goes towards this reunification, whether it's flights, applications, all that. So that's sort of where.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gaby.
I mean, an example of like the kind of work we do sometimes it's not just the paperwork, like especially in LA, we have some cases in LA, and when those are here, I like to sometimes help with actually going for the reunion. Sometimes I get Ubers. Like we had a Uber that a family couldn't afford that was $150 from El Monte to LAX because of traffic. And so I'm on call all the time. Like somebody calls me and they're like, hey, it's 11 p.m. They just told me this happened. When this brother called, he's like, they just called me, my brother is at the airport. I had no idea. And I'm like, okay, what address did they give you? Yeah, they called from a private number. So then I go online and I look up the address and I'm like, this looks really sketchy. It's by the airport, it's not the airport. It looks like an empty lot. So I didn't feel comfortable sending the brother on an Uber because I was like, what if he shows up and there's nothing? So I'm like, hold on there. I'm driving out and it's 11 p.m. and I'm like, I show up and I pick him up and we go to the address that they gave him. And I'm there and no, I'm not there. I didn't make it there because there was construction. I'm like, how is it that we can't get in there? So that we're like driving around. I'm like, we're like, call your case manager, which is like the La Trabajadora Social. And they're like, but they can't because, they're not working at 11 p.m. And the number that they got the call to pick up his brother is a private number. So we're like driving around for like 30 minutes. And then we're like, how about we just take this street and go and drive down this way and see if we can see somebody and ask around. So we ended up doing that. We finally found the buses. And when we showed up, it turned out they were giving the wrong address to everybody. There was a mistake. But I kept thinking, like, had I sent them in an Uber, showed up to, like, the Uber wouldn't have even been able to get there, like dropped them off, and would have been like, what do we do now? There's no number to call. Like, it was so stressful, but like we were able to help that way as well. Like, we're kind of on call for anything that comes up in anything in the process.
Wow. So there's the policy aspect of the separations. Then there's the personal aspects, just the logistics of you're saying that the faxing, the applications, the example that you just gave of being able to connect people, transportation, and so on. Sophia, you work directly with the people who are separated and trying to unify. Tell us about your work with every last one, and if you could give an example of a successful reunification.
Yeah, so with every last one, I have been doing more of the work with the children as far as their asylum cases go. So I'm not necessarily involved in the reunification part per se. I'm more involved in the immigration court aspect. So one thing that really struck me is just, you hear things on the media and you always hear people say, why don't they come here legally? And I was like, this is legal. Like, they were allowed into the US because it was the beginning of a legal process of seeking asylum. It's like, I think what most people don't understand is that these kids are all put into immigration court proceedings upon entry to the US. They're allowed into the US because that's seeking asylum. One of the ways that you can do so is by presenting yourself at the border and asking for asylum. So the reason why these children are being allowed into the US and being put into these shelters in the first place is because they're seeking asylum and they're actually put into immigration court proceedings upon coming into the US. So I'm actually more involved on the immigration court proceedings aspect and helping with the asylum cases.
Sure. Well, we've heard, at least I've read about, especially during the pandemic, fortunately we're kind of moving out with it, is that even the legal proceedings have been a big challenge in that they've been in front of judges on Zoom, unable to communicate in the language. The attorneys may be someplace else. They only have so many minutes to present their case. What has your experience been like?
So that's the thing, is that first of all, you're seeing a lot of delays with the court hearings because, and another thing too is I should back up with, you're not entitled to a lawyer for immigration court proceedings. So the vast majority of these children are going before judges without any sort of immigration attorney at all. The idea that you're entitled to an attorney is like, it's a criminal thing. That's like a public defender. If you're charged with a crime, then you get a public defender, you get a lawyer. But immigration is seen as a civil area of law. It's not, it's separate from criminal. So you're not entitled to an attorney at the government's expense. So if someone has an attorney in immigration court proceedings, they've either paid for it or that person has volunteered their services. So that's why very few people actually in immigration court proceedings have an attorney.
And so at least the people that you've represented, what's been the outcome?
So I haven't gone before a judge for any of them actually. A lot of the times the first struggle is even getting paperwork. In theory, every child who's passing through these facilities when they're released should be given what's called an NTA, a notice to appear. And it's an immigration court document saying, the technical term is inadmissible alien. You're an inadmissible alien under this section of the law because of this, this, and this. It's charging why the government is saying you shouldn't be in this country. And then it gives a lawyer the legal background to kind of like then say, no, they're not inadmissible actually because they have this defense to it. it's a challenge to even get the NTA a lot of the time. A lot of the times these facilities don't want to give the sponsors the paperwork. It's very difficult to get a hold of these. And with immigration court proceedings, you're oftentimes not going to see the outcome for sometimes years. So right now, I don't have any success stories to share because unfortunately, most calendar hearings have been put off. Okay,
well, thank you. We have some questions here. I'm gonna just, for this from Chispa Hill, Holly Lynn, one of our viewers on Facebook. She's a teacher. She writes, I write to my worst congressman ever on a daily basis. I just need more specific language to continue my efforts. I would appreciate knowing what exactly to say or help in this realm. I have students that have confided in me about their time in La Helera, 60 days plus, and I've been a safe home for people receiving asylum from the horrendous Adelanto detention center. Once they are here, they're lacking resources. What can I do? Specifically, one of my students really wants to attend college, become a Spanish teacher. What can I do as her teacher? Does anybody have any advice for her? It's a tough one. Sorry.
I can try to answer.
Yeah, please do.
Well, in terms of what resources you can provide, I think that first of all, knowing the legal status of someone can open up what resources are available. Unfortunately, undocumented people are not eligible for federally funded aid. However, if someone has some type of status, then you're free to contact me actually, and like if you have more specifics, but sometimes getting them resources is what's going to be most helpful because there are programs that sometimes someone is eligible for, and then that can be very supportive. In terms of speaking to your congressman, it depends on who your congressperson is, but there are several congresspeople that have not sponsored the Families Belong Together Act. And so that's something that we need to get on, that Casey from Every Last One has been really good about making a resist bot for, and just getting people on board and getting your students involved, because all you have to do is text the number and then it sends the letters for you. And I think stuff like that is really, really important now to put pressure.
And what was the name of that bill again, please?
The Families Belong Together Act.
Okay.
That's what will create a pathway for citizenship for the parents of the children that were separated.
All right.
Yeah, and I can include that too and send you information, but this is a good time to talk a little bit. There are petitions that you can sign that are out right now. The resist bot allows you to, text. So for the Families Belong Together Act, that we need co-sponsors for. So we're asking people to text GO FBT, that's GOFBT, to the number 50409. Resist Spot is great because it will ask you what your address is, where you live, your zip code. And once you plug in your address, and they don't sell or share that information, it will tell you who your representatives are. And from there, it will send an automated letter saying, please, we need you to co-sponsor the Families Belong Together Act. So there are a lot of politicians who have not yet co-sponsored it. I know that AOC, Bernie Sanders, Warren, and a few other people have already co-sponsored it. So that is one that we need to share, and that's GO FBT to 50409. And I can send you all of these different petitions and the links, and we can add them to once you post this on your Facebook as well, or they can reach out to us. Another one is Go Reunite to 50409. So you're gonna text Go Reunite to the number 50409. And that is a letter that's gonna go out to Biden administration, and again, pressuring the importance of reunifying the children with their families on quicker. So we're saying it's taking too long. We need to reunite these children immediately, and it shouldn't be this long. So there's a lot of different petitions that we can sign, and I can share those with you as well.
Well, if you could go ahead and use the chat feature, put it out there, and I will cut and paste and put it on our Facebook as well, so that people could have that resource. We have a question here from an anonymous attendee. What are the psychological effects on both children and adults of being separated at the border for such a long time? Do we know if these children have access to mental health professionals while in detention centers? This goes out to all of you. It's about the psychological effects on both children and adults. I know what we've seen in the media. Often, children that have been separated from their parents for even just a short amount of time have difficulty even reconnecting with their parents. But have any of you seen this firsthand?
I have. I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago. I went to a reunion in Arizona with a 6-year-old was being reunited with his mother, and we were so excited when the actual moment happened. But we explained to the 6-year-old, like we helped in the process of reuniting you with your mom, but he was he didn't know how to trust. We spent the rest of the evening and the next day with him and the mother, and he was even very scared of us. Even though we told him we weren't going to take him away, he was. I mean, I don't know what the long-term effect is, but just right after, it was really heartbreaking to see that. And even with a mom, he would just be with her at all times, and he would just be telling her to not leave him. So seeing that right after was really emotional and difficult to see. I've also experienced where I'll call the families once a child has been released to check in with a kid. And what I've been getting a lot of, and some of these cases that I've been talking to the kids, they're son adolescentes. So they're like a little older, and they're having, and I try to explain who I am because they've gone through so many people. They're in a shelter. There's sometimes they're scared to talk, or they don't know who to talk or what to say. And the family, sometimes the mom or the uncles, they'll talk to me. They're just very quiet. And they're like, maybe they'll open up. And I'm like, maybe they will. But I really don't know.
I would say for sure there's going to be a lot of trauma and a lot of long-term effects that are going to happen. I mean, with a child, I think of my own daughter. If she was separated with strangers in a facility with other children, even for 2 or 3 days, I know that would be a shock for her. We are seeing some reports of children who are suicidal in these detention centers. They are having anxiety attacks. It's trauma. There's definitely going to be trauma. And I think that's where the urgency of why is it taking so long to reunite these children? Why are they there for this long? 33 days average is too much. And I know there's kids who've been there a lot longer. So if we're talking about trauma, I would say yes, for sure. I study child and adolescent development and understanding the brain and psychology of children. Anything can trigger, especially the younger the child is. And BBC did do a segment where they interviewed these children who came out of the detention center. The parents will right away say, she's not the same child. This is not my child. My child she used to be very outgoing, and she was, such a kind, loving person. And now she doesn't trust anybody. She's very quiet, even with her mother, she's they're having sleepless nights, they're having nightmares, they're now reunited with their parents, but they're suffering all of this trauma. There's also, I'm sure, as you can imagine, if you're going to have some behavioral, what's the word? Some frustrations within the detention centers. If you think about a detention center who is housing thousands of children, hundreds of children, you're going to have children who are going to be like, that are going to lash out. There's been another case where there was a teen who, he's been in detention for such a long time. They actually called in a police officer because he had, had a little, which we know teenagers already going through a lot of hormonal issues. And imagine that on top of the crime that they just fled in the journey. And then on top of that, now they're in prison like situations. And now they're in detention center. It's natural for a child to have an outburst, and I think this child, like, he broke like some container or something. A police officer came in, and there's video to show that, and I can send that to you too. And he tased him, and he was speaking to him in Spanish, in English, and the teenager does not speak English, and he didn't respond to his commands right away, and he was tased. So what abuse is happening even in these detention centers? So I would say trauma, yes, and this is exactly why children should not be detained like this. And there are accounts, documented accounts of families saying, my child is not the same person. So that concern for mental health is a big concern. And that's why we're here. And that's why we're saying, this has to stop this long. It should not take that long to reunite the children.
Yeah, and some of these shelters, like the emergency intake shelters, they're not regulated. They're so basic services like having,
mental health,
a lawyer, or mental health, or even toys. Because while some are regulated and some do have laws, like I've heard that some shelters here in California are pretty good, and they're able they've set up certain oversight rules, and they have been able to reunite a little quicker. But then what about the ones in Texas or certain shelters that don't have that oversight? And that's something that I think that in policy wise could help out.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Transparency, for sure. We need to know what's happening in these centers. I know a lot of lawyers and just journalists and all of that have not had access to some of these. And that's where my concern is. We need transparency. We need politicians. We need artists. We need people to speak out. We need to be the voice for these children. They don't have a voice. Their voice has been taken, and we don't know what's going on. We want to know what's happening in these facilities. And when there's abuse reported, is that being taken care of? Or, like I said, there was some sexual abuse that was reported. So that there's an urgency here. It's what can we do? And that's where I appreciate you, inviting us here to use this platform to inform more people. We need to inform ourselves. We need to, make those connections. And I think we just need to be loud. We need to let people know that this is unacceptable. Just the way people were outraged when Trump was in and said kids are in cages and all this happening, like this is continuing. It's still happening. And we need that same outrage from everybody, from both sides, to say this is not okay and children should not be in detention this long.
All right, thank you. We have a question here from Michelle Gerardo. She's asking, and I'll add to it, how can I help if I don't speak Spanish? But also, how can our viewers help or to support your individual or organizational efforts? Sophia, if we could start with you.
I think that the most important thing is just helping to spread awareness and also just to correct misinformation, because I know that, I get that not everyone's a lawyer, but just simple things like, these kids they're coming over here illegally. They're not. The entire reason that they're allowed into the US, which is what is happening most of the time, is that they're processed in. It's because it's the beginning of the legal process for them to seek, in most cases, asylum. There are immigration applications that they are potentially eligible for. They're doing this the legal way. And so correcting misinformation when people are saying stuff that's not true, I think is just a major component of it, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of what's going on. And then when people do hear about what's going on, I think it's very easy for people to write it off if they feel like there's some justification to it. And I think, in psychology, if you can distance yourself from the people that are being victimized, then, you feel safer. Because I think that in the Hispanic community, a lot of people that have papers or were born here, they can distance themselves enough from these children and be like, well, I don't have to be worried about immigration. You know what I mean? I don't have to be scared because that's not my problem. Not really understanding that it is our problem. Look at how things changed during the Trump administration. He created an entire agency to try to denaturalize people. So people that became US citizens, he was combing through their records with a fine-tooth comb, trying to find reasons to take it away. You know, you're not that far removed. And I think just knowing that and being able to communicate that to others is really, really vital right now.
All right, thank you. Gaby, how can people help support both the Spanish speaking and the non-Spanish speaking? How can they do, what can they do to support these efforts to both, as Sophia says, to educate, to understand this issue in a deeper, more meaningful way, but also to help support, to reunify these families?
Well, I mean, I think what Sophia said was incredible awareness and paying attention and communicating and not distancing yourself. But also for like people who are bilingual, who do speak Spanish and want to help out, like we said, we have the hotline. If you have like an hour a week, that's all you need, you know. You'll get a message, you call the family, you ask them some questions. We do a training with that so that you know what to do. Then that's sent to us. And, you know, like filling out the application, which can be very difficult for so many cases I've had where the family doesn't know how to read and write. And that's something that we can do. That's pretty easy for us, but it might be almost impossible. I had a case where an uncle hadn't reached out to sponsor his nephew because he was so scared because he didn't know how to read. And it was like, not until the organization he contacted us was he able to start the process. So like, that's something that if you're able to do it, like we got a training for that too. It's 2 hours. And you know, and also you can always donate. The money helps Ubers. It helps transportation. It helps printing out things. Just yesterday, I had a case where a DNA test that cost $500. Wow. That the family was like, I can't do that right now. It's way too much. And we were able to help out with that case. Like what things come up in each individual case for each thing, and the donations help.
All right. Well, thank you. Priscilla, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say for sure, informing yourself and creating awareness. I don't feel like enough people are talking about it. You know, unfortunately, politicians want to know what people care about. You know, if you're making noise about it, and if you have thousands of people gathering and saying this is unacceptable, if you have a Twitter storm, if you have millions of people tweeting the president saying, what about those children in the detention centers? We need millions of people to make this a personal issue. If this was your child, what would you do? If your child, if this was the situation, if you were in this situation, I think people need to start personalizing a little bit more and seeing it as, this is not a political thing. This is not like that party needs to take care of it. This is, you need to take personal responsibility and say, you know, we need to take responsibility for what we're doing to these children, you know, here in the States. This is what's happening in our country right now. And I need millions of people to say, this is something that is important to me. And we need the politicians to listen and to say, oh, people are starting to talk about that now. And, you know, we need to change policy. We need to do something about this. We need to put more effort into and more money into making sure that these children are getting reunited quicker, you know, that it's not taking this long. So I think for me, that's important. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we're running out of time here, but I first of all want to thank the three of you for participating and really sharing such deep knowledge on this issue and ways that people can help. And one of the questions here is about registering or signing up to work with the hotline. And is that something that they would go through your website, Gaby?
Yeah.
Okay, so
just go to everylastone.org and all of the volunteer information is on there. how, and all of that. And we just had a training a few weeks ago where we trained people on how to fill out the application. So there's trainings for that. There's trainings for everything. So.
All right. Well, we'll take advantage of that. There's a question here about from Helena Rojas. Do you have connections with a similar organization in Texas? There are several groups here in El Paso, mainly protesting, but she feels that much more is needed. Are you aware of anything that, or do you do outreach in El Paso as well, or in Texas area?
So with every last one, it's everywhere. So it's not just an LA thing. It's if there's someone in Texas that needs help, if there's someone in the Virginia Center and Arizona. So it's nationwide. It's not just specific to Los Angeles. As far as actions, I know that Fort Bliss specifically, I know El Paso down there, there's people doing, activist work and being out there. And I know there's a lot of organizations doing, just speaking out and saying this is not okay. But with every last one, you can certainly volunteer and sign up from, anywhere in the States.
All right, thank you. A few comments here on Facebook from Ruth Lopez Hernandez. Continue sharing and bringing awareness by reposting and sharing with others that support the same causes. And we will do that here on La Plaza's Facebook page. I personally repost as well. So I would recommend that you follow Priscilla in particular, because she's on this issue along with others that she could talk about. We have every last one's website there. Chris Morales, thank you, Sofia, Priscilla, and Gaby, for your commitment, humanity, and passion. And we thank you as well. Let me see, we have Cassandra Moreno. She's just asking about the effectiveness of social media efforts for supporting children and unification processing. Is it working? And should we continue focusing on those kind of social media campaigns? Goes out to all of you.
For sure. I would say for sure. I mean, that's how you and I were able to connect too, I think, through social media, especially, with COVID and everybody sort of just being in their own worlds. I think certainly social media, you have people reposting, sharing, and that's a great way to connect to other people who, you may not see in person. So as far as the question is social media helpful? I think for sure. I think stuff, things like this need to go viral. We need millions of people, even outside of the US, to see, what's going on and what's happening. So yes, social media for sure. And that's, politicians see that. Again, politicians look to see what's happening, what's in the news, and, and people want to know. But I would also say, do not rely on politicians and or media to give you the information, and or don't just follow whatever is sort of happening now. I would say, follow activists, follow organizations that are doing the work in this situation. A lot of times, we get that information and we share it out. If I see an article, I'm quick to share that even within my account, because I want people to know what's going on. So I view that as like, sometimes we need to be our own media and our own, sharing with each other. And sometimes I don't hear stuff. I hear stuff first from an activist than I do on Channel 4, or a politician, so we can't rely on them to give us the narrative. We need to be involved in the issues and follow the people that are working and doing that. And that's how I get my information, for sure.
Well, thank you. That's excellent advice. Any final thoughts on this issue? And Gaby, please.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you everyone for even being here and staying informed. And I'm just really honored to be here. And
well, thank you so much for participating. Sofia, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me. And I'm grateful that there are people that are interested enough to join a Zoom meeting to learn more about it. I think we just need more people that care.
All right, thank you. Priscilla?
Yeah, I would like to call, anybody who feels like this is an issue. I think we need a press release. I think we need artists. There have been some artists, Juanito specifically, who has called artists to say, let's come together and use our platform and, share our concerns to the president. So I think we need organizations like yourself. We need, you know, these big platforms. We need this information out. So I call onto any artists or anybody who's interested in sharing and creating awareness. Let's put something together and let's continue to inform our people.
All right, well, thank you so much. Angelica Lozano, thank you to all the women for their work and sharing important information. Thank you, Angelica, for that comment. From Gabriela Gomez Saxon, thank you so much for your time and all that you've done, and we thank you as well. So, so if you caught our program, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to see it again, because there was just so much information, we'll be posting it on our YouTube page at La Plaza LA. It also will live on our Facebook page at La Plaza LA and on our website, lapca.org. You could catch all of our En Casa con La Plaza sessions there. It's deep, believe me.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great programming, both hard-hitting, informative information like we had today, but also entertainment, workshops, and so on. Coming up next week on, well, the rest of this week, we have on Friday, Dan Guerrero with his guest, Julio Quintana, an award-winning filmmaker. As you know, a lot of attention is being paid to Latinos in the film industry. So he'll be going in deep with a first-generation Cuban-American who is mentored by acclaimed filmmaker Terrence Malick on his, who exec produced on his first film. So he'll be with us on Friday, June 18th. Next Wednesday is when we really get deep with the issues that are really impactful in our community. We have Beyond Protection, the Future of Dreamers in the U.S. with Professor Armando Vázquez Ramos of the California-Mexico Studies Center. That's Wednesday, June 23rd at 7 o'clock here in La Plaza, En Casa con La Plaza, who'll be discussing the continued challenges faced by dreamers, along with the comprehensive efforts made to give them the opportunity to work, study, and pursue their dream of a better life in America without worrying about deportation. And really that's kind of goes hand in hand with our issue today. So again, thanks to all of you who joined us today. And we'll see all of you real soon, hopefully at La Plaza or here on En Casa con La Plaza.
I was gonna say, I'm so excited that you guys are open up again, and our kids, you know, we when we went a couple of weeks ago, they were like bummed that you guys, the children's section wasn't open yet. That's one of our favorites. So I'm gonna let them know that you guys are open up again, and we're really excited. Please go and check them out. They're amazing. They're right across the street from Alvera Street. So you can go, and it's a free museum visit. And I love all the exhibits that you guys have there. And then you can always go to Alvera Street and get a bite to eat. So the whole experience is amazing. So please go and support our people, or, you know, in this museum. We really appreciate you guys.
Well, thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, Sofia, Priscilla, Gaby. Thank you so much. Everybody out there, muchas gracias a todos y nos vemos muy pronto. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.